And speaking of the West's actions or even response to your side, let's take a look at the United States National Security Adviser, who warned that Russia was shifting its focus in its war in Ukraine to the country's east and southern part after experiencing a stronger than expected defense by Ukrainians supported by Western allies. He also reasserts U.S. continued military assistance for Ukraine.
Now, as the images from Bucha so powerfully reinforce, now is not the time for complacency. The Ukrainians are defending their homeland courageously, and the United States will continue to back them with military assistance, humanitarian aid, and economic support. We know that military assistance is having a critical impact on this conflict. Ukrainians are effectively defending themselves with U.S.-produced air defense systems and anti-tank systems, such as Stingers and Javelins, as well as radar systems that give the Ukrainians early warning and target data, and multiple other forms of arms and munitions.
As we just saw the statement there from the United States, Madam Ambassador, the U.S. in multiple occasions, we know, have expressed their support for Ukraine in both economically and also in the military. So the top U.S. generals have also urged more U.S. troops in Eastern Europe. How does Kremlin react to this?
Well, for 8 years, the U.S. have been trying to turn, and they have turned, unfortunately, for Ukraine into an anti-Russian project. And they're using Ukraine as an instrument to attack Russia. But of course, they don't want to come into direct confrontation with the Russian Federation because it will mean massive conflict, maybe even, God forbid, World War III. That would be a nuclear one. So what they're trying to do, they're trying to fight with Russia to the last Ukrainian. So Ukraine in this situation actually is a victim of the Western policies. And led by U.S., who are trying to grit to not lose their global dominance. That's the core of this crisis. They're not willing to hear the security concerns of other countries, including Russian Federation, or to treat other countries as their equals. That is the core of this crisis. And instead of trying to find a quick solution to this crisis, the U.S. are doing whatever they can to prolong it, including providing arms to the Ukrainian side or bringing troops to eastern countries. They promised actually us not to extend NATO to our borders, and they lied. They never did it. They actually, NATO has undergone 5 rounds of expansion towards Russia's borders.
So, looking at all the West, not just the U.S. but also scores of Western European countries moving in with their different moves. What's the current strategy or what's the approach compared to when this first, like, for instance, this has gone on for a month or even more, like several weeks more. Like in the beginning, it was reported that Russia would do this in a relatively short term. But are you surprised that it has taken this long?
You know, I'm quite sure that we could have done it more quickly. But what we're trying to do, we're trying to spare civilians. We're not, whatever the West or Ukrainian side claims, Ukrainians are our sisters and brothers. We're the same nation. So we are conducting this operation very carefully in order to spare as many human lives as we can. We're trying to open humanitarian passages for civilians to be able to leave the cities that are surrounded by the troops. We're providing humanitarian assistance. We've already accepted more than 500,000 Ukrainian refugees, or even more, because some don't register, they just go to live with their relatives and friends in Russia. So we're trying to spare Ukrainians. That's our strategy.
What about the resistance from the Ukrainian side? Has it been a surprise that has taken this?
I'm not a military expert. I cannot assess the ability of Ukrainian army to resist. But what we see that those who resist more are the neo-Nazi armed groups that are famous for their atrocities performed, and we have already accumulated a lot of information, unfortunately, that our soldiers and officers who has been taken prisoners are tortured by Ukrainians, and we intend to submit it to the international community and to it to be known what is happening and what the Ukrainian armed forces are doing.